edition of the City That Never Sleeps show. I'm your host, Brandon Pockers, joined as always by my co-host, Austin Kane. Austin, how are you doing on this fine Tuesday afternoon?
I'm doing great. Another Tuesday. We are back. Another great week of sports. Let's get into it.
Yeah, so we got a lot of cool New York sports stuff in the news already. We got some upcoming stuff such as MLB free agency. Nothing's really happened with that so far, so I'll give you a bit more of a preview of what we think might happen with some different information that's been out there. Also, NBA's in full swing, the NHL's in full swing, so we'll get information to you guys on that. To start off this week, the New York Jets were on bye. We will get to them in a little bit later. But the New York Giants had a game. And as you see on the bottom of the screen now, the question of the day, the Giants will not make it further than the first round. Agree or disagree? Leave your comments below of what you think about that. And Austin, why don't you kick us off with what the Giants did this past weekend?
Yeah, so Giants, they hosted Houston. They won the game. They won the game 24-16. Was not all that pretty. Uh, kind of got some help all over the place by everyone all on the field, defense, offense. And they got the win, which is the most important part. And it was a good game. Always love some good football.
Yeah, it definitely was a good game. And, if we look at the stats real quick, the first thing that stood out to me was Daniel Jones. Very clean game out of him. He had 197 yards, 13 to 17 through the air, and had 2 touchdowns. And we'll get to his wide receivers in a little bit, but I think it's always a good thing when, especially in this case, a younger quarterback. I'm not saying young, but younger, to see him perform at this level and really guide this offense with the help of the engine of the offense, which we'll get to in a little bit. It's always good to see that. It's always good to see a quarterback do what is needed to win the game. And that's really been the NFL this year. Most teams are simply relying on their quarterback to be the guiding hand of the offense to not lose them a game. Because a lot of teams are relying on defense, relying on simply stopping the other team's offense. And when you can do enough to win a game, when you're not necessarily an elite quarterback, your team's going to have a shot in more games than not. And especially with Jones, who, on top of his passing game, added 24 yards rushing on the ground, it keeps the defense honest. It keeps them on their toes. And when that happens, it allows the Giants to thrive as an offense.
Yeah, for me, I think it was just the playmakers out there. On top of Daniel Jones keeping it clean, getting the ball to his guys pretty quick, got it out of his hand, and once he got in those receivers' hands, they were making plays all day. And, the run after catch for the Giants wide receivers this week was great. They were making plays and yeah, led some touchdowns.
Yeah, and I feel like the biggest person involved in for the wide receivers was Darius Slayton. He had 3 receptions for 95 yards, had a very long touchdown in that stat line. But I really think that the most important thing was the fact that the Giants showed they still have a weapon on the outside. Wan'Dale Robinson, who was a third-round pick for them, only had 2 receptions for 20 yards. Tanner Hudson, Isaiah Hodgins, Lawrence Cager had a touchdown. These guys that you don't really know a lot about. Yet, a guy like Slayton, who has shown the talent, shown the ability to produce, him getting that opportunity to step up and him actually taking advantage of it is something that's going to be really important down the road for this Giants football team.
Yeah, 100%. Maybe they can finally get Slayton as their number one if they're going to consistently keep working to get better, build that chemistry more and more. We can see a Giants get build a number one receiver out of him, then this offense takes another step.
Yeah, absolutely. And sticking with the offense here, we'd be remiss if we didn't bring up the engine of the Giants offense himself, Saquon Barkley. Saquon did not have a lot of receiving impact. He had 1 reception for 8 yards, but he powered this team on the ground. He had 35 carries, which that is definitely a career high for him, for 152 yards and a touchdown, averaging 4.3 yards per carry. There's nothing else to say about him except he's one of the most exciting players in football. He's one of the best running backs in football, if not the best running back in football this year. And the last thing is, wherever he goes, this Giants team will go. Austin, do you think there's any qualms about anything I said there? Because I feel like it's very obvious to tell what Brian Daboll and company have built this offense around.
Yeah, no disagreements there. We knew going into this one that they were going to be leaning heavily on Saquon against this Texans rush D, and he did what he had to do. He ate up yards, got a bunch of carries, helped them control the clock, which is a big factor in winning the game. And doing that, and like you said, where he goes, they go. I mean, that's about it. We can go on and on about him, but really, that's the basis of it.
Yeah, and on the flip side, the Giants defense, I don't really know how to look at the Giants defense in this game, because on the one hand, they were opportunistic. They did have this bend don't break mentality where they did pick off Davis Mills, the Houston quarterback, in the end zone. They did force a fumble on Dameon Pierce in the red zone. So they found those opportunistic ways to force turnovers. At the same time, though, Pierce did go for 94 yards on 17 carries, 5.5 yards per 5.5 yards on average per carry. Mills did have over 300 yards passing. Jordan Akins had 72 yards receiving. Chris Moore had 70 yards receiving. Nico Collins, 5 for 49 and a touchdown. Probably could have had a bit more impact. So I guess what I'm trying to get at is, are we concerned about the Giants' defense a little bit? They've proved that they can shut people down late in games, and they did that once again. But I'm more concerned personally about this run defense, because this has been something that has been getting taken advantage of week after week, week after week. And can they fix that, or is that going to start to get exposed in the upcoming games that they're going to be playing? Because if we look at ahead of their schedule, there's a lot of teams that rely on the run game that could have very big days against them.
Yeah, I mean, even within just their division, pretty much all of them rely on the run game. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely possible that this could open something where they could possibly get exposed down the line. It's nothing you want to totally panic about at the moment. I think, the Xavier McKinney injury is kind of coming into play on that. He's a guy who played every single possible defensive snap up until the injury. So, losing a guy like that will never help. They're going to have to lock in as the season. They got to the quarterback a few times this game, which, you like to see that. But, yeah, stopping the run, you don't want teams averaging, 5.5 carry on you. It's never good, especially when their quarterback's also throwing for over 300.
Yeah, exactly. And, I think that brings us to a more long-term picture and discussion about the Giants as a whole. We got Thomas in the chat. What's up, Thomas? Also got Jake in the chat saying, "What's up, boys? I'm going to agree with the poll." Yeah, that kind of ties into the overall discussion about what's going on with the Giants now and how that's going to impact them in the future. Once again, anyone watching right now, we got the poll up on the screen. Giants will not make it further than the first round. Agree or disagree? Make sure to leave your comment below, and we will get to it as soon as we can. I'm just in this boat where, look, you see this schedule where, yes, they beat the Texans. Okay, so they're 7-2. Way better than I personally thought they would be. We said on previous shows that we think the Giants can get to 10 wins. And I think those wins are going to come against Detroit, Washington, and probably Indianapolis. Those are my 3 quote-unquote locks, if you want to call them that. But as I said last week, I don't see them going far in the playoffs. The division, despite if we look at these NFL standings, the Giants have made up a little bit of ground. They are currently, if we look at the NFC, the second place team. They are ahead of the Cowboys. They are 1 game behind the Eagles. They are 7-2. And that entire division is tough. There's not a team under 500, especially with the Commanders beating the Eagles last night. So after that Detroit game, which I don't think that's going to be an easy game, so to say, but they have Dallas, Washington, Philadelphia, Washington, back-to-back games. They could win 3 of those games. They could win 2. They could win 0. It's all up in the air. It's all division games. Right now, where I'm standing, I don't think the Giants are any better than a wild card team. I don't think they have more talent than the Eagles. I don't think they can stop the Eagles' rushing attack. When it comes to Dallas, I think they're even in terms of the Giants can score a little bit on Dallas, but Dallas is going to, at full strength, very easily score on the Giants. And then Washington, that's the toughest part. Because, they've been so up and down this year, all over the map. They'll lose easy games. They'll beat the Eagles. So, like I said last week, I'm not giving them more than 10 or 11 wins, but at the same time, we've seen crazier things happen. Obviously, nothing is out of the realm of possibility here. It's the NFL this year. We've seen crazy things happen. We're going to get to a lot of crazy things that are happening later in the show. But I'm going to agree with the poll that the Giants don't make it further than the first round. As quote-unquote weak as the NFC is, the Giants, I feel like, still are that year away from fully competing in this conference. They are a playoff team, but they are not a true competitor. They are not a true threat to go far in the playoffs. That's really where I stand. Austin, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm in a similar boat. I'm not going to write them off saying no shot they get past the first round. I mean, you said yourself the NFC is for the most part, and their division last night just opened a lot more wide open than it was. I think they have a chance to do it, but we were talking about their D line going against the rush, which they struggled with this week. Vision, it kind of fits the same scenario. You got Zeke and Pollard, 2-headed monster. Last night we saw Brian Robinson and Gibson control majority of that game. Washington the ball for 40 minutes, and we know what the Eagles want, Sanders, etc. But really for me it depends on the matchup. If they were going to get the Cowboys, let's say first round of the playoffs, I think they line up pretty well. They don't line up great against them, but I would say it's a pretty even game on your team. And if you can get him the ball, let's say 30 times, anything can happen. I'm going to disagree with the poll. I think Giants will win a playoff game.
Ooh, that's our first disagreement on this show in terms of the poll. I'm interested to see how that plays out. And if we pull up those standings to just give a more overall sense of the matchup the Giants would probably be facing, they could be facing a team like the Buccaneers. They could be facing a team like the Seahawks. They could be facing a team, if they make a run, like the Packers. Personally, I don't think they match up well with Tampa. I think they match up very well with Seattle. We saw how close that game was. And then, Green Bay, they beat Green Bay. So I'm gonna agree with the poll still. But obviously, it's not like, oh, it's a foregone conclusion. They have no shot. So, like I said, it's the NFL. Any given Sunday, things can happen. Next week, we could be talking about, hey, do the Giants have a great shot at winning the division now? Because, it's not out of the realm of possibility. They still are technically a real threat. They are the second place team in that division in the NFC East. So, overall, it's going to be very interesting. I'm personally interested to see if they can keep up their momentum against Detroit, especially considering that game is home. Detroit has not been a great road team. This should be a game the Giants take care of business easily. But, weird things have happened this season. So it's time to move on to the Jets. And there have been some ramifications this past weekend that have made this game against New England a bit more important than a lot of people may have thought in the past. Austin, before I get into it, what did you see this weekend that really has upped the ante of this Jets-Patriots game? On the Jets side, at least.
Yeah, from what I know, I believe the Jets can, with a win, potentially be first place in the conference or potentially be last place in their own division or something like that. Either way, it's a big game. This is the game that we thought was about 2-3 weeks ago. That was in MetLife. It's this week in Foxborough. Can the Jets go do it? Maybe. Zach Wilson, he's going to have to improve from the last match, heavily. Jets are going to have to control the ball and make stops on defense, and I think they can. I'm excited to see. It's a big, big game.
So at the risk of sounding like a completely broken record, this is the biggest game the Jets have had in a very long time. And it's crazy because I said that last week. I said that the week before. I've probably said that 3 other times on the show. But it's not an exaggeration because the stakes just keep getting higher because the Jets keep capitalizing on these opportunities. The Jets do have an opportunity to go in the first place at this point of the season for the first time in, once again, over a decade. It just shows you how long it's been since the Jets have been able to compete at this level. Also, to the other point Austin mentioned, the AFC East is the best division in football. There is not a team in this division that is under 500. The Dolphins 7-3, the Bills and Jets 6-3, the Patriots 5-4. The crazy part about this is the Jets have already beat the Dolphins and Bills this year. And that just adds more to the idea of this game, how important this game is. I feel like I've said this once again a few times this year. It's going to come down to Zach Wilson and his ability to command the offense. On the defensive side, the Jets showed that the Patriots do not stack up against them on that side. Maybe for a drive or two, but for the vast majority of that game, the Jets defense shut down Mac Jones and the Patriots offense. If they can improve their third down defense, which that was a sieve during that game, if they can improve not having untimely penalties, such as the penalty that would have swung the game on the Michael Carter pick six, then I think the defense will shut down the Patriots. What it comes down to, once again, is Zach Wilson. Can Zach Wilson avoid turnovers? Can he play within structure of the offense? Can he guide the team down the field? Can he find Garrett Wilson? Can he find Elijah Moore, who I think will be involved more? Can he help execute play action passes after the Jets establish the run with Michael Carter and James Robinson? Even outside of Wilson, can the offensive line dominate like they did in the Buffalo game? Can the running backs find the same lanes? Can Garrett Wilson consistently continue to get open? It's going to come down to the offense to really score enough points when needed. And I think that's not too much to ask, especially considering what they did against Buffalo. Like, am I crazy to say that?
No, not at all. I mean, they did versus Buffalo. I don't see why they can't do it versus New England. You know, something I think that's going to have to happen. Keep going on Zach Wilson. He's just going to have to keep it boring. Do not do anything too crazy. We saw versus the Bills. The quick passes to Garrett Wilson, and it worked. Control the ball. Do not turn it over, and you'll be in line for success.
Keep it simple, stupid. Kiss. That's all it comes down to. Get the ball out quick, execute, maybe play out a structure for one or two plays and find that big hit down the field. Otherwise, allow Mike LaFleur and your offensive weapons to help you move down the field. I think the Jets win this game. Is it a foregone conclusion? No. But I do think it's a 24-17 type game once again. I do think the Jets get a few things that swing in their direction this time instead of New England. I do think Sauce Garnder shuts down whoever's on his side. I think D.J. Reed shuts down whoever's on his side. I think Quinn Williams has a big game. Bryce Hall has another huge impact. Jermaine Johnson continues to improve. I do think that overall, the Jets have more talent than New England. They are a better team this year. It's just a matter of execution and avoiding mistakes. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, defensively, they're going to have to stop the run, I think. Doing that. Last game, we saw some broken tackles turn into long runs, touchdown. If they can do that and keep the running backs contained at the line of scrimmage or behind it, which is always the goal, get off the field, they can definitely win this game.
Yeah. So before we move on, I feel like we touched on this a little bit. We were a little iffy on Jets division odds, last week. Do you think those odds have increased, decreased, or stayed the same after this past where the Jets were on bye?
They definitely had to get better odds to win it for sure.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that Buffalo looks vulnerable in the sense that I think that Josh Allen is trying to do a little bit too much. Not in the vein of Zach Wilson, who his version of doing too much, but the fact that Josh Allen is borderline superhuman in some of the things that he does, and he doesn't realize that those things can lead to mistakes. Looking at that schedule, if the Jets win this New England game, sitting at 7-3, they should beat Chicago to move them to 8-3. There's a shot that Minnesota game, like we touched on last week, gets flexed to a primetime game. That would be a really big test in terms of facing Justin Jefferson and a really good Minnesota team. And if the Jets somehow rattle off 3 straight wins out of the bye to put them at 9-3, the two biggest games for them essentially are the Buffalo and Miami games because, sandwiched in between those two games are Detroit, Jacksonville, and Seattle. So all these games look winnable. Could they lose these games? Yes. But these are, unlike earlier in the year or before the year started, there's not a sentiment of, yeah, the Jets are automatically going to lose. They're 7-8 point underdogs in all these games. So it all stems from the New England game. If you beat the Patriots, not only are the playoffs essentially in your grasp as they are right now, you're still controlling your own destiny, but you essentially control your own destiny for the division in more than one sense. Because at that point, you have the divisional record over Buffalo. You beat them. You have the divisional record over Miami. You beat them. And you split with New England.
Who would then be two under?
What?
Who would then be two under the Jets in the division?
Probably Miami. I think it would go, if the Jets beat New England, it's probably Jets, Miami, Buffalo, New England. Because New England at that point would then drop to 5-5. So, it's very interesting to the point where I think it's going to be and I said this before, it's going to be the most exciting stretch run the Jets have had in at least 10 years, 5 years. It's going to be really exciting to see what they do with this unprecedented opportunity that they've been afforded.
Yeah, and time is now. I mean, it's here. Why not go get it? Hand. Playoffs definitely in reach. Divisions in sight. Go get it. Win this week.
Exactly. Do you have a score prediction for this game, or are you holding off?
I can give you one.
Yeah, go for it.
I have, because I think the defense is going to come out and just shut it down completely. Show that they're a top whatever defense in football, if not the best at the moment. Score, I'm going to give the Patriots 10. We're going to give 20-10 Jets. Shut it down in Foxborough.
That's a statement right there. So that's going to wrap up our New York football coverage. Obviously, stick with us through the week. Got a really big show next week with the Giants and Jets games. So stay tuned for that. Before we move on, Thomas, getting to your comment right here. So I got to disagree to the poll. And, that's fair. I think that's very fair. I think that's reasonable. But I'm not going to waver just yet. Frankly, unless I see the Giants defeat a team like the Eagles and defeat a team like the Cowboys. They have beaten good teams, don't get me wrong, but I feel like it will go a long way if the Giants have a home playoff game versus if they're going on the road. But once again, that's just my opinion there. And, before we move on, once again, want to remind you guys, All Campus is giving 20% off everything in their store, including hats and shirts to all their subscribers. Make sure to take advantage of that deal, guys. You really don't want to miss out on it. Also, reminder, don't have this pulled up on the screen at the moment, but Creative Window Design Center is serving all your window and furniture needs in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Florida, also New York. If you want a free consultation, make sure to contact Jeff at 609-226-0391, and he'll come there and take a look for you. So, time to move on to around the NFL. And I've been alluding to this all show. The NFL has been borderline insane this entire year. It's been just all over the place, and so many things that we thought were going to happen haven't happened, and vice versa. I mean, me and Austin were talking before the show. He made some NFL record predictions, and he was telling me that, like, 3 of these records are just completely flipped in the opposite direction than he thought. I mean, Austin, you agree with me here? This is one of the craziest NFL seasons I've seen in recent memory.
Oh yeah, my all my predictions pretty much not going great, but no, this has definitely been the craziest year. Brady's got a 500 record. Aaron Rodgers under 500. Russell Wilson under 500. I mean, just keep going if we wanted to. Just with how crazy it's been, and it makes you think and remind you that any given Sunday, anything can happen in the NFL, which makes it the best sport. It's awesome.
Absolutely. So, looking at these games from the past week, is there one that really stands out to you that you want to talk about first?
I think there's one that we both want to talk about first. Down. Uh,
Yeah.
no, no more undefeated teams in the NFL. Shout out to the Birds though. Uh, got to 8 now, but the curse of the Washington killing undefeated seasons strikes again. But yeah, no. Last night we saw Washington Commanders. They controlled the ball for the whole game pretty much. The time possession was like 40 minutes to 20, and they were kind of just looking at the Eagles sideline saying, "You're not getting on the field. We're going to win this." Kind of a controversial finish. You can get into that if you want to start.
Yeah, I was actually not able to watch really much, if any of this game, but I was able to see the controversial hit. Um, it, it's a stupid rule, but it was the right call. I think that's the best way to go about it. You know, was he technically down? Yeah. Is it stupid that that penalty's thrown? Absolutely. But it's the right call in the rule book. And that's unfortunately what happened with the Eagles here. You know, they had their opportunities to win. They had their opportunities to stay undefeated, but it didn't happen. And quite frankly, and this is something I've seen in countless years, specifically a nice inverse of this is the Patriots year where they were undefeated until the Super Bowl. It's better to have the loss now and understand what it feels like to lose earlier in the season versus having that first adversity, that first loss hit in the playoffs. Because now, from an Eagles perspective, they're able to build off this, they're able to move forward and essentially be like, okay, we got this out of the way. We now know how to respond from adversity, move forward, and continue to be one of, if not the best teams in the league. We saw A.J. Brown in his press conference say this. He said they were happy. He was happy that the pressure, you know, the expectations of being undefeated are gone. He's not saying that they're like a bad team or anything, but those expectations are a lot. The understanding that you could be the first undefeated team since the 1970s is a lot. So overall, is it does it suck that the Eagles aren't undefeated? Yeah. Is it going to be better for their team in the long run? Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Learning now to how to bounce back from the adversity and the loss is definitely going to feel much better than if you lose round one in the playoffs or something, or that'll just hurt 10 times more because you don't get to play the next week. But they're 8-1. They're still first seed in the NFC with the tiebreaker on Minnesota, so no need to worry. It's just a tough loss. The call, I agree with you. Yeah, it's a bad call. Stupid that they had to throw the flag there, but you kind of have to throw the flag there. Um, I think Brandon Graham probably could have stopped, but hey, the ref didn't blow the whistle either until he basically got there. So, Eagles fans, you can be mad for that one, but look, you're 8-1. Don't get greedy. Blame it on Lori in the parking lot before the game singing "We Are the Champions." Uh, But yeah, no, Eagles will be fine.
Yeah, exactly. And I want to shift focus to a very specific game because Jeff Saturday, I want to apologize. I was not
Yeah.
familiar with your game. If you're not following this story, Jeff Saturday was hired as the interim head coach of the Colts. I came on this show and I completely ragged him. I ragged the decision and I ragged the idea of him even having a shot to helm an NFL team. And then he went out and won his first game. And in a decently decisive fashion, because we look at the score, they won by a score of 25-20. Colts are now 4-5-1 on the year. Matt Ryan surprised back into the lineup. Okay, sure. Looking at the receiving, Paris Campbell 76 yards, a touchdown. Granson 57, Pittman 53, Jonathan Taylor 22 for 147. Also, without Naheem Hines there, receiving 100% of the receiving down work. I'm going to take the direction of saying, Jeff Saturday is going to help get the Colts potentially in the right direction. And maybe it's not going to be as bad as everyone thinks it's going to be. Do I think they win the division or a playoff team? No. Do I think that they're not going? Do I think that they're going to look like the worst team in the league anymore? No, because that distinction is pretty damn close to the Raiders. And Austin, I'll let you start off that point.
The Raiders. Man, a lot of hype around this team. Just to go out and lose to damn Jeff Saturday in his first game. Shout out Coach Saturday. I was also a hater last week. Yeah, we'd get it done. Derek Carr didn't play all that bad. Kind of just box score watching here. Josh Jacobs only averaging 3.7. Doesn't really help. And we saw Derek Carr cry on the podium. That was, nah, got a few.
See, I respect the emotion. I really do. I really respect the emotion. Because it's like, look, things must be really bad if he's on the podium like that.
Yeah, that loss must have messed him up or something. Maybe he just thought they were winning because Saturday was coaching, but that did not happen. The connection with Adams still there, but it seems to be that's about it. That's all he's got, and it's just not working. And this defense let Matt Ryan throw for over 200 and Jonathan Taylor run for over 140. So nothing's really going good. Do we see a one and done though at the coaching position though?
I also want to add that they let Matt Ryan run for 38 yards on the ground, and the fact that Matt Ryan, of all quarterbacks, especially at 37 years old, essentially, ran for that many yards. Yeah, something's going wrong. But to your point, right? If I'm the Raiders, and if you look at the current draft standings selections, the Raiders have the number 2 pick in the NFL draft. Now, if I am the Raiders owner, Mark Davis, and I am in that position, this is not what I think is going to happen. This is what I would do. I'd burn the entire thing to the ground. I'd fire the GM. I'd fire the head coach. I'd fire literally everybody that has a position of power in the organization in terms of running football, and bring new people in. Literally rebuild. Look, I get it. I get it. You traded Devontae Adams. You traded for Devontae Adams. You have Derek Carr. You have Josh Jacobs. You're not going anywhere right now. And it's not about the guys on the roster, because the Raiders do have talent. That's not the problem. The head coach is just so abysmally bad that it's not going to happen. Things aren't going to work with Derek Carr here. I could see him, things go sideways in Indy. I think he could end up there. Things go sideways with Zach Wilson and the Jets. I think he could end up there. I don't think Derek Carr is a bad quarterback, so to say. I just think that it's just not working in McDaniel's system. I don't think McDaniels as a head coach is good at all. This is the second time we've seen him fail. I just, look, my plan of action, I'd blow it up and take Stroud or Young with the number 2 pick right now. And the worst part is I don't think they're going to do that because they just fired John Gruden. They just got rid of a head coach. Completely different reason, but they weren't exactly good with him either. So the Raiders, I feel so bad for their fans and the players and just everyone involved because it's just an endless loop of just, I don't even want to say mediocrity. It's just bad. It's just straight up bad.
Yeah, no, not good. Everyone just seems to be underperforming at all levels. Staffing included. It seems like the culture, it's not up right now. It's kind of down. Derek Carr can stand up there, say he loves everyone in the building, but there's a time where it becomes business, and these owners are really powerful people, and they want what they want, and they want it right. Um, and yeah, I don't see this whole core lasting much longer. I guess I would also blow it up. It's just not going to work. Start fresh.
Yeah.
It won't kill you.
And that's a discussion we can have later in the year, obviously, who you're going to go with, Stroud or Young. But that's a decision they're going to have to talk about. And it would be so Raiders if instead of those, it's like, who sounds like a good pick? Will Anderson.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm sorry. I have no faith in a coaching staff and an organization that had a roster that seemed like it was only a little bit away from being a legitimate contender. And they currently have the second worst record in the entire NFL. That's just, for me, just an outside observer, that's unacceptable.
Yeah, 100%. It should not be happening. Especially like just got a new head coach. Like you went through that whole process once, like nobody, but you're really on the edge of you almost have to do that all again.
Yeah, exactly. We got Drew in the comments. What's your thoughts on this game between the Jets and Patriots this weekend? Kind of went into it earlier. I do think the Jets should be not necessarily favorites in New England. Foxborough is a very tough place to play. I do think they win this game. And as I said before, I wasn't not sure if you were in here, but I'll repeat it again. It comes down to the offense. Can they execute? Can they avoid the mistakes that hamstrung them in the first matchup? Because if they do that, I think the Jets defense does enough to win them this game.
Did you have a score prediction for that?
I did. I
I know
said
I
24-17. Yeah, I had 24-17. I think it's a little bit closer than 2010. Obviously, would love that, but I don't think it's there just yet. And speaking of bad, excuse me, West Coast teams. All right, I think it's time to have a discussion about the Rams, Austin. We were sounding the alarms last week, and I think it's reached full code red because the Cardinals defeated the Rams 24-17. I'll be honest, the only thing in this game that really mattered to me, outside of the fact that, Matt Stafford's hurt, I'm not really going to put too much stock into the overall sense of that. But one, John Wofford did not exactly play any better or any worse than Matt Stafford has all year. And number two, Cooper Kupp has a high ankle sprain. The
Bad.
Rams season's done. And I think this
Yeah.
Rams regime might be in trouble.
Who's it come down to, though? You think Donald?
What do you mean?
Just for it to all just collapse? Who has to go first? Because
I
they're
think
not
that's a
making
great
the
question.
playoff.
No. And you want to know what's insane? They don't have their draft pick. The whole F them picks, that entire strategy. Guess what? The bill always comes due. Every time. And
That's true.
and for a Seattle Seahawks team that is just thriving right now, I think that's the team that got their pick, right? Am I? Oh
I think so.
no, my
No.
bad. It's Detroit, right?
Oh yeah, for staff.
Yeah, my bad. Detroit is gonna thrive off this pick. Seattle's thriving off a different pick. We'll get to that in a minute, by the way. I'm just in shock that it went downhill this fast. I've never seen a Super Bowl contender in 1 year go from first to worst. Maybe 2 or 3, but one singular year, I didn't think they'd be this bad.
I mean, I told you my projection before the show. What did I have, like 13-4?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's just like
I did not see this happening. That being said, I mean, they did it right. I would, if you're gonna sell out and try and win the Super Bowl, you better win the Super Bowl. But they did. So, for me, if you're a fan of the Rams, whatever, it was all worth it. Whatever's coming in the next 3 to 5 years, let's say, within 1 to 5 years, who knows? It was all worth it. You got your ring. But yeah, it's just not looking pretty.
yeah, that's the thing. They did it right. They had the right roster. They sold out. They got the ring. That's what it's all about. But to your earlier point, I think McVay's the first to go. And what is that this year? I don't think so. I think it's potentially after another year where it's like, okay, if we can't right the ship, I'm out. I'm going to take my broadcast job, and I can come back to coaching whenever I want. A la John Gruden when he took that route. I think Aaron Donald could be shortly after. I think Donald could be after this year, especially if he sees things aren't getting better. I think Stafford will be after McVay. I think the GM will be after McVay. I think Jalen Ramsey, which I feel terrible for him because he's stuck. I feel terrible for Kupp because Kupp isn't exactly stuck, but he will be soon because he's going to get paid. There's not much after that. To be honest here, there's no offensive line that they have. There's no reinforcements waiting in the wings. There's no running backs. Cam Akers has fallen off a cliff. Everyone else in that backfield, Darrell Henderson, Kyron Williams, just not getting the job done. They have no receivers outside of Kupp. Allen Robinson's been a major disappointment. The defense is not great this year. It's average at best. They have no secondary outside of Ramsey. Everything's falling apart. And the worst thing about it for Rams fans, Rams people that enjoy following the team, there's no draft picks in the next few years. And the fact that the Carolina Panthers saved the Rams from themselves, which, Austin, I'm sure you saw what that trade offer was. Brian Burns was almost traded to the Rams for 2 firsts and a second. It just shows that they're in desperation mode. It shows that they're grasping at straws to try to do anything to improve this team. And it shows that the end of the line is coming very fast. And it sucks because they were such a fun team. But at the end of the day, the bill always comes due, as I said earlier. And unfortunately, it seems that is coming to fruition for this LA Rams team.
Yeah, close it up there for for their season. No cup is just detrimental. But what a QB matchup they had this week. Colt McCoy, John Wolford. Doesn't get better.
Cliff Kingsbury's saving his job, by the way. Improving that record, the 4-6. I'm sticking to my guns with that prediction, but it's looking better and better for him with each win and each guy that he gets back on offense. The Cardinals are having a complete inverse of the Rams because they keep getting their guys back versus the Rams keep losing their guys to retirement, to injuries, to trades. So, yeah, it's very interesting.
Hollywood's back this week too.
Yeah, exactly. And the funniest standings in all of the NFL is probably the NFC West or the AFC West, honestly, because if you look at it, the Seahawks are in first place, the 49ers are in second, and the Rams and Cardinals are both at least 2 games out. So take that as you will. It's been a very weird football season, as I said. And the last thing I personally want to touch on is kind of two-pronged because they fall into the same division. And Austin, if you want to touch on anything after this, go ahead. But this is kind of the last point I want to end on. The Broncos and Chargers, part of my language, they suck. They're bad. They are bad teams. They are just not. They're not good. It's brutal, and I obviously we acknowledge the Vikings Bills game. This is a New York show. We're not going to go into every single NFL game, but this AFC West division has huge ramifications for the Jets because the one team that everyone thought was going to be an absolute threat to them, the Broncos, they're one of the most abysmal offenses I've ever seen. And watching Red Zone on my phone, one, they were on there maybe once the entire day. And two, when I was checking my phone for these games, Russell Wilson sack, fumble, I saw that alert at least 4 times. It just seems like, and I'm not gonna lie, didn't fully watch the game, really didn't have a means to. I don't understand what's happening with this team because they are an insanely good roster. They have the best defense in football, the Broncos. They have the worst offense in football and the best defense in football. It's insane that they're losing these games. And the Chargers, a game I did watch, look, I get it. You're down literally every single weapon on the team outside of Austin Eckler. You lost Everett, you lost Williams, and you lost Allen. Okay. I have never seen a team squander a quarterback talent in a game with an offensive play calling structure like the Chargers have with Justin Herbert. How? And I'm talking to you, Brandon Staley. Do you call every single pass in front of the sticks no matter what the down is? You are playing the 49ers. They are not exactly known for their high-octane offense, and I get it. Their defense is very good, but their weakness is the secondary. What are we doing?
I was going to ask, how warm is Brandon Staley's seat?
Let me pull up the standings real quick. The Chargers are in second place at 5-4. At the same time, though, they would be battling the likes of the Patriots and the Bengals for a wild card spot because both the Jets and Bills would be ahead of them. If the Chargers do not make the playoffs this year, I'd say I'd put my odds at 60-40 that he's gone. Especially at 6. I'm not going to be a crazy person and say, oh, he's 100% gone. Because they have dealt with an insane amount of injuries. But but the Joe Lombardi just offense is just the Brandon Staley Joe Lombardi offense. I don't understand. You don't have a guy that has a weak arm. You have probably one of, if not the strongest arms in the league. Please throw some downfield passes to your guys. Please run some like deep crosses. Actually allow Herbert to show off. I don't know what he did earlier in that same game. He literally had 150 yards passing at like halftime, and I think had what, like 20 yards the rest of the game. It was ridiculous. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, you can't miss the playoffs. Herbert's third year. I mean, we know the talent this kid has. He's going to be a stud for a while. They're just not letting him unleash for some reason. Which I guess the weapons, but trust your guys out there. You know, those are NFL wide receivers too. Don't throw the ball.
And it's like, I'm not an expert. I don't know everything that's going on. Maybe they did have those routes, and the 49ers pressure just got in their face. Maybe Herbert is afraid to take those shots to guys that are relative unknowns. But this has not been a one-game thing. I caught it in this game, but this is not a one-game thing. This has been something that's been happening game after game after game. Herbert's essentially been the only reason that the Chargers have been winning games, because he's willing this offense down the field. So I'm hitting the panic alarm in terms of this offense. I'm not saying the Chargers season's done by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm hitting the panic alarm because something needs to change with this offense ASAP.
Yeah, I agree. And just going back quick to the Broncos. You know, if they scored 20 points in every game, they'd be 8-1. They just can't find the end zone.
They gave Russell Wilson an extension before the season, Austin.
He'll be there. I'm sure he'll be there. Not the free agency pool by the next 3 years.
Hold on. I gotta look up this contract at right now, because you bring that up, and I don't think there's an out for it.
Yeah,
I think
it's a lot of money.
All right. I'm so pulling up Spot Track right now, right? His current contract, cap hit next year, $22 million. Do you want to know what the dead cap is?
Huh?
Do you want to know the dead cap for Russell Wilson and his contract next year?
What is it?
$107 million.
Jeez. Well,
Yep.
I mean, he's not going to get cut, but
the cap hit then goes up to $35 million in 2024, $55 million in 2025. The dead cap goes down in 2023 to 2024 from 107 to 85 million, and then down to 49,600,000. The potential out is in 2026, and that dead cap is still $31 million. Absolutely unbelievable. The Broncos they don't have an out. There's no out.
So, I mean, and the thing is, nobody's trading for him. I mean, nobody wants that contract. Plus,
who's
what we've seen contract? Who's trading for that player to lead their team?
Look,
nobody.
It's one thing if you don't like the corniness, the whatever he does. It's another thing to have all that and then the contract on top of it.
Yeah. No, I mean, he's there. I'll tell you that.
The Seahawks, man.
Be there.
The Seahawks got away with robbery. And that's crazy to say, because Russell Wilson has been one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL for the past however many years.
10 years. Yeah.
But that's the situation they're at right now.
And then they luck out with Geno like that. I mean, straight straight robbery. I mean, before we move on, I just want to shout out the boys. Steelers got a big dub this week. Mike Tomlin has now beat every team in the NFL besides the Steelers, of course. Uh, Kenny Pickett didn't look great. Andy Dalton, we own you. That's about it.
Yeah. Real quick though, want to remind you guys, all campuses giving 20% off everything in their store, including hats and shirts to all their subscribers. So make sure to get in on that. Also, Creative Land Design Center is serving New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Florida for all your window and furniture needs. If you want a free consultation, please contact Jeff at 609-226-0391. Before we move on from the NFL, it's time to talk about fantasy players of the week. Also, good time to remind everybody watching right now, you have any questions, whether that be football, basketball, baseball, hockey, fantasy, drop them below and we will get to them as soon as we can. My first fantasy player of the week is Justin Fields once again. Guy has turned into one of, if not the best fantasy quarterback this season. If we look at his stat line from this past week, as I'm pulling it up, he just continues to dominate, continues to look like one of the more exciting young quarterbacks in the league. And, he's carrying teams to victory. He's had back-to-back weeks in which he scored over 45 points. This week he had 46 points in our league, at least my main league scoring along with Austin's. 162 yards passing with 2 touchdowns in the air, 147 yards rushing with 2 touchdowns on the ground, added a 60-plus yard touchdown run once again. Mr. Fields is #good.
Yeah, no, loving he's disproving the fact that Ohio State can produce a quarterback into the NFL slowly but surely, and it sucks. He keeps balling out and losing. Help him out, Bears. But my first one, we're gonna give it to Kadarius Toney. Giants fans, sure you're not loving that, but sorry. 4 catches on 5 targets, 57 yards, and a touchdown. He also had 2 carries for 33 yards. Came to the game. He was playing the whole time, but after Juju got hurt, scary injury. But after he got hurt, he kind of filled in as his number one receiver outside of Kelsey. It's going forward, we'll see what's up with Juju. But it's a guy that could slide into your roster spot if he's available in your league. Because if you can become Mahomes' number 1 option, it could be dangerous.
Yeah.
Number 1 option as a wide receiver. Kelsey's always the number 1 option, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, that was the plan for me. I was planning on getting him, but our league that me and Austin have the pleasure of competing against each other in have this just wonderful rule where there's no waivers at all. Just great, fantastic. And it's just wonderful when the app ESPN FIO, please figure it out. It's great when the app you're on just doesn't let you add players, yet it lets one singular team in the league pick up every priority free agent that's available. So I'm mad about that. I'm going to yell at Austin about that off air because he is the commissioner of our league. So that will get resolved sooner rather than later. Also, a funny quote relating to fantasy. Jeff Saturday said he had to transfer his fantasy football team to Eric Decker after becoming a head coach. So pretty funny about that. Guess there always needs to be a contingency plan unless one of the league members becomes, I don't know, an interim NFL head coach. So that's pretty interesting. My second guy of the week, though, is Christian Watson. Another guy that, was just stolen from everyone on the waiver wire. Thanks, Spencer and Billy. Keep up the good work. He had 4 receptions for 103 yards and 3 touchdowns, giving him 34 points on the week. Just an overall football sense, if Christian Watson can emerge, Aaron Rodgers and the Packers are going to look so much better. They're going to be so much more dangerous, and they will start to rattle off wins. He was always the guy that Green Bay wanted to be their guy. He was the ideal Devontae replacement, added more speed, more downfield ability than anyone else on their roster. And after battling through some injuries, he finally showed that talent. He could have had an even bigger game if he didn't drop a few passes. But he showed that he has insane athletic ability, already a decent connection with Rodgers, and really, I think that's only going to get better as the weeks go on.
Yeah, and I mean, I just feel like that win by the Packers kind of just changes everything. You even saw Aaron Rodgers on the sideline after the game saying, the best part is we're not dead yet or whatever. He's cooking. But my second guy, same game, same position, just the other team, CeeDee Lamb. I had the pleasure of facing him this week. 15 targets, 11 catches, 150 yards, 2 touchdowns. I balled out 39 fantasy points. That was actually a really good game. Cowboys just couldn't finish it out at the end. But those are my 2 fantasy guys.
Yeah, awesome. So on that note, we are done with our football coverage for the week. As I always say, just make sure to stay tuned for more NFL coverage. We got a lot on the way. Big Jets and Giants games next week. Big NFL week as always. So stay tuned and keep it locked and loaded to the show. It is time for MLB offseason discussion for the Mets and Yankees. And it was brought to my attention by my co-host here that the Yankees have made a big move already. Austin, why don't you break that news?
Yeah. Anthony Rizzo is back with the team. $20 million a year, multiple years, $17 million for the next 2 years, plus a $6 million buyout in 2025. So really, I'll put that all together. He's there for about the next 3 years at least. I like the move. Honestly, I kind of thought he wasn't going to come back and be a Yankee, but what we've heard or seen reports of, he loves being there, and put in his tweet that it's worth noting Rizzo has grown very close with Aaron Judge over the last 2 years. I mean, it's a little telling. I mean, I don't think Rizzo would have came back that fast without knowing a little insider info. You never know. As a New York podcast, I think we're definitely pushing for Judge to re-sign as a Yankee. I mean, for you, if not a Met. But yeah, I mean, that's how I see it.
Yeah, so my perspective with this signing is it was one of the more important ones the Yankees had to get done. There was not really that many good first baseman options out on the market. This is someone that is built for Yankee Stadium. He has that nice lefty swing that allows him to utilize the short porch as much as possible. And, I agree with your point where it's like, okay, he is very close with Judge. He's not going to come back unless Judge, re-signed. But I think you can also look at this move independently of that. The Yankees needed him back too. He was a very important part of their offense. So
with reports of him going to Houston too, which was rumored. So
right,
because they're losing Mancini and Gurriel, so yeah, kind of makes it even bigger.
Exactly. So it's like I think there's a view of both those sides. It's a view where he doesn't come back unless he knows something about Judge, and also the Yankees made him the best offer and prioritized him as a free agent. So I think it's really somewhere in the middle of those two. In terms of Judge, broken record here. The Yankees have to re-sign him. It's disaster city if they don't re-sign him. they'll have to go scorched earth on a lot of different free agents if they don't re-sign him. I'm leaning towards probably a 70-30 that he's back there at this point, bumped up a little bit from the 60-40 I was sitting at. Reason for that, I think if Judge was so dead set on leaving New York, we would have heard something about it already. I think there would have been rumors floating that, hey, Judge is not going to stay. Judge is going to go here. Judge is going to go here. Judge is going to go here. There's been nothing on that front. And quite frankly, outside of another signing where Tyler Anderson of the Los Angeles Angels, or Tyler Anderson of the Dodgers signed with the Los Angeles Angels, a deal that is for 3 years and around $39 million. There's really been nothing. Is that the best way to put it? There hasn't been much going on.
Yeah, I mean, we see it every year with MLB offseason. It just takes so long. Everyone's always waiting for someone else to set the market because in baseball, money kind of just seems like an imaginary thing. So, it's really all going to come down to, who signs first and whatnot. And then, the domino pieces slowly fall and things will get moving. But, we really can't expect to see that until December at the earliest. I mean, there's rumors like people wait till February. It sucks, but that's just how it goes.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we've had some other moves, such as I'm looking here, Nick Anderson to the Braves, Rafael Montero to the Astros for 3 years, $34.5 million. I mean, the Astros firing and not re-signing their GM that just won them a World Series.
That team was handed to
Jock
them.
Peterson. Yeah, Jock Peterson and Martin Perez accepting qualifying offers. Like, the fact that there's, and obviously can't forget the Edwin Diaz re-signing with the Mets.
Yeah.
There's been 5 total moves, really, on like a larger MLB free agency scale. So yeah, I don't know how much movement we're gonna get. Obviously, you hear the rumblings about Bogarts in Philly. You hear the rumblings about DeGrom. The Mets want him back. Could he go to the Rangers? You hear the rumblings about the Mets checking in on Carlos Rodon. The Mets checking in on, honestly, basically every free agent out there. It's just a matter of it's just tough because rumors are very interesting in all sports. At the end of the day, there's always a source that is giving out information for a rumor, whether it's an agent, whether it's a team, whether it's a player themselves speaking about it. There's a lot of different avenues for what rumors are legit, what rumors aren't. And until concrete stuff starts coming out, no one really knows anything. We have ideas, such as on this show, where I said, hey, Brandon Nimmo needs to be prioritized. And the Mets GM did come out and say, Nimmo is going to be a priority. So is DeGrom. On the other hand, you have a report that says, hey, DeGrom reached out to the Rangers camp and saying he's interested. Where it's a matter of where is that information coming from? Who's saying what? And it's very interesting. It's very subliminal at times, and it's very tough to sometimes distinguish what's real and what isn't.
Yeah. Yeah. Just a bunch of rumors. I mean, pretty much reporters at this point just throwing stuff out there and seeing if it sticks because one is bound to. Yeah, so I don't believe too much of what you see at the moment really officially happening or meetings actually starting and negotiations and stuff like that, which to us, I mean, in the outside world, the people that aren't behind the doors, we haven't really seen any of that. Nothing about too much negotiating yet. which we'll slowly get into winter meetings, which is when stuff starts to kick off, which I'm excited for. I'm ready for it to start right now. If it could, I would make it, but fortunately, do not have that power.
Exactly. And before we move on from our baseball discussion, because really not a lot of baseball news out there right now. Have any of your predictions changed? Do you have any new ones? And if they have changed or you do have new ones, why?
I mean, like I just said, don't totally reports that are out right now, but I kind of, well, I'm buying into the Bogarts news. Obviously, highest goal was to go get Trey Turner, a little more expensive than Bogarts, but I think if you get Bogarts in Philly, then room for some more arms, which you also need. So we'll see. I mean, nothing has totally changed for me. Some more news. Evaldi has declined his offer. It's a free agent, so there's another guy added to the pool. Um, but yeah, nothing too much has changed for me. I think we just see some crazy stuff though. It always happens.
Yeah, the Bogarts one's interesting because I always had that idea that Philly would be very interested in him. The Dombrowski, yeah,
Yeah,
Dombrowski connection. I still think Dansby could be a really good fit for them. Although, to be completely real with you, I don't know what their price ranges are. I think Dansby might be more expensive than Bogarts, which I guess I would lean a little bit towards Bogarts then. Like you said, go after a bit more pitching on Philly's side. From a Mets perspective, a potential Michael Conforto reunion in the cards. I don't know. Potentially. Um, I don't know how I'd feel about that. I really don't want him after missing so much time being immediately a starter. I'd rather have him as like a fourth outfielder type at this point. Um, I do think Nimmo ends up re-signing because I think the Mets prioritize him, and I still think DeGrom leaves because I think that it's the Texas Rangers. I think that the Texas Rangers are this not even dark horse, but this team that has proved they will give astronomical amounts of money to proven players that are maybe a bit older that maybe shouldn't be getting that amount of money in order to get them to play for their team. New stadium, new money. Wouldn't surprise me to see them go after a guy that has been widely considered the best pitcher in baseball for a very long time. And it's not a matter of, oh, the Mets should let him walk. It's the Mets should re-sign him. But there is a specific price point where I'm like, I'd rather get Rodon. I'd rather get a guy like I would have said Anderson, but Anderson just went to the Angels on possibly a bit of an overpay. Like those type of guys, shore up your pitching. Maybe trade for a guy like Tyler Glass now. Maybe make a splash and trade for a Shane McClanahan. Like these type of moves are out there if you lose out on DeGrom. And you're able to make your team that much deeper if that DeGrom price point gets too high.
yeah, exactly. And if you miss out on DeGrom, it just gives you more funds to go get some different guys. Actually, I mean, put all that money into DeGrom, you're kind of strangling yourself to almost just him plus a few other guys. But if you lose him, you can go play the game a little bit.
Exactly. We got I think Kuda in the chat saying how's it going? What's up? How you doing?
For the
Glad
bang, what's
happy
going
you're
on?
happy you're tuning into the show. But yeah, that's really where I stand with, DeGrom. Bassett, Walker, I think they should bring at least one of them back. If both work out, sure. But, it's just very interesting. It's very intriguing to see how things are going with MLB free agency. And, as we move on to NBA and NHL discussion, we will be covering these moves as they happen. We will be recapping them on our show, giving our honest thoughts, analysis, and what it means for the two New York teams, the Mets and Yankees, and the overall baseball landscape as a whole. On that note, my friend, it is time to move on to NBA basketball. And oh boy, the Knicks. What did I say last week? They're mid, right? What was that? Was that
Yeah,
my line?
that was it.
Yeah, they're mid. They
Yeah.
are mid. Mid. 10th in the Eastern Conference at the
Yeah.
moment. So that's always great. They sit at just a wonderful record of 6-7. Since we last were on the show, which that would have been on Tuesday, they had just beaten the Timberwolves. They proceeded to absolutely get steamrolled by the Nets. They beat the Pistons. The Pistons are one of the few teams that are worse than them. And then the magnum opus of this season so far, the New York Knickerbockers gave up 145 points to the Oklahoma City Thunder. Austin, why don't you get us started?
Yeah, no, it was not pretty. But let me ask you, as a fan of the Knicks, I feel like you're where you expected this team to be. I mean, 10 seed at the moment, 6-7, brink of 500. Yeah, lost OKC is pretty tough, giving up 36, 43, and then 43 again in the first three quarters. Will never be helpful in winning a basketball game. Right back to you as a fan. Seeing where they are now, was this where you expected them to be, or a little better, a little worse?
So here's my thing, and this is what it boils down to when I'm watching the Knicks. It's not a matter of, oh, they're 6-7. I expect them to be 11-5, or 12, and like that's not what I'm saying. That's not the reason I'm saying, oh, they're straight up mid, whatever. But if you look at the teams and the manner in which they've lost, right? Giving up 115, 119, 112, 133, 112, 1-4. Like, the defense has not been good. And for a team that is predicated on its coach having a good defense, that's warning signs, right? Julius Randle, for all the good he's had on offense, has still not taken much accountability for his defensive struggles and the absolute defensive liability he's been. Obi Toppin's not playing enough. Lineups are getting flipped around like crazy. So, yes, I'm not saying that the Knicks are in dire trouble, but there are huge, and I mean huge, warning signs that things could go south very quickly. And let's look at their schedule, right? Jazz, Nuggets, Warriors, Suns, Thunder, Blazers, Grizzlies. Like, Austin, there's a shot the Knicks lose all those games. There's a shot that the Knicks go from like 6-7 to 6-11, 6-12. And it's not a matter of, I don't think the Knicks can win these games. It's a matter of, okay, against a team like the Jazz, who have been a very good offensive team, how are they going to stop them, especially with Randall? Lauri Markkanen might put up 30 tonight, right? The Nuggets, who's stopping Jokic with Mitchell Robinson out? Nobody. Okay, there's two, right? The Warriors. Yeah, the Warriors have underachieved, but the Warriors are the Warriors. They are very tough, and it's going to be a very difficult task to beat that team. The Suns are a solid team. You lost to the Thunder already, and the Blazers and Grizzlies have been better than expected. And looking at these standings, right? there's a shot that over that stretch, you go from not only the 10 seed to like the 11, but from the 10 seed to the 14. Right now, the 13 and 14 seed are the Magic and Hornets, who are 4-10 and 4-11. If you go on that type of slide, that is possible because you are playing these good, very good teams. You're in lottery territory. You're in the Victor sweepstakes.
I was about to say there's a very good player coming to the league next year. When does that decision start having to be made?
I want to.
Teams are going to be going
I
down hard for him.
I want to hear your opinion first before we get into that, because I think that's a discussion we need to have.
Yeah, I mean, just with the Knicks in general, the next couple games, I think they're definitely not must win. 20 games into the year, but you'd like to see this team come out tonight in Utah. A team who's overachieved more than almost any NBA team I've ever seen in my life after just trading the house and right back into it. But Utah frauds, they'll expose them. Then I think Denver, Golden State, Phoenix, all teams that honestly are much better than the Knicks at this moment, much better rosters, let's say. So I think they'll probably drop at least two, if not all three of those, and then I think you pick up another win. So kind of sandwiching 3 losses in between 2 wins to kind of keep them afloat, to say the least.
Yeah, and I mean, looking at the Western Conference standings, you're playing literally in that stretch the top 5 teams in the Western Conference, because the top 5 teams in this order are the Blazers, Nuggets, Jazz, Grizzlies, Suns. Like, it's not an easy stretch, and this could be the end of the road for Tom Thibodeau.
The craziest part about that run 5 teams in the West is that the Warriors aren't one of them, so you're just adding them on top of it. So
Exactly. It's not it's tough. It's very tough. You got to start giving Quinn and Grimes more minutes. You got to give Obi more time. I mean, maybe find a way to ship off Randall sooner rather than later, despite what he's bringing on offense. Allow Cam Reddish to thrive. He had 26 in their last game. Allow Emmanuel Quickly to keep doing his thing. There are ways to, elevate this roster. But, and this is the conversation that I've been dreading to have, but I think it's necessary. I think if you get to a point in the year where if you're like 6-15, 6-17, it's time to start the tank commander, New York Knicks. Because, look, these standings, right? If the Knicks go on this type of stretch, they're in the lottery conversation. Like a bad stretch. And obviously, it's a terrible look to lose on purpose. But because of Victor Wembanyama and Scoot Henderson, 2 of the best prospects coming into the league, on top of the Thompson twins, on top of some other players, this is the type of draft class you tank for. Quite honestly. And the problem with this Knicks team is what, Austin? They don't have a star. They don't have a guy that is like the mega star that can help elevate that roster. If you're able to get one of them, that changes the entire complexion of this entire team, entire future outlook for the Knicks. Then you have all these picks to go trade for a guy like, I don't know, maybe an SGA comes available down the line. Maybe an Anthony Edwards comes available down the line. And then you can pair him with maybe a Wembanyama or a Scoot at that. Like, that's what you open yourself up to if you've reached that point. And I'm only saying that if you've reached that point. But if you have the shot to contend, go contend. But if you even see the glimpse of having that window of tanking open, I hate saying, because it's as a former athlete, I hate people saying, "Oh, you should just lose this game," but it's like it truly would be the best thing for this team's outlook in the future.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm kind of on the same thing as you. You know, the Steelers picked up a win and jumped from third pick to 10th pick in the draft, and I'm all for it because these wins aren't going to come often. But with the Knicks, I mean, I think basketball is just a different game where go get them because in basketball, you one guy can win you a championship, uh, and like you said, they're missing that superstar talent, and you know, I'm going for it honestly. Like screw it. Go get this guy, put him in New York, and turn this thing around. That being said, tanking somewhere like New York in MSG will not go over well with many people. You know, it's a really tough game, tough line you got to walk on. But yeah, we've seen this kid Victor. I mean, he's gonna be that guy.
Yeah, yeah, it's very tough. And to just quickly talk about the other New York team, the Brooklyn Nets are basically in the same spot as the Knicks. They are 6-8. They are actually below the Knicks, I think at this point.
Yep.
They are 12th in the Eastern Conference. Um, yeah, I'm not worried about the Nets as much as I think a lot of people were. Obviously they dropped a tough game to, I think it was the Lakers in their last matchup. Yeah,
No,
yesterday.
no, lost to the Lakers.
Yeah. Look, the Lakers have talent. It's just a matter of it hasn't clicked this year. I do think KD and company will do enough to be a low tier playoff team slash play in team, but I don't think they're at this level of they're a championship potential level organization at the moment.
Yeah, the rock. I mean, there's not very. It's kind of with the whole Kyrie thing still going on. He's still out, and I mean, I personally don't know when his comeback is dated for, if it has been at all yet. Um, KD's still that guy, but you got to get some wins, keep winning, get over 500 goal, and then slowly keep collecting. Ben Simmons, you're a bum. Uh, that's all I got to say about that team.
Yeah, fair enough. And I to make it our weekly little segment, yeah, the Los Angeles Lakers have the third worst record in the entire NBA. Actually, second worst record instead of the Rockets. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I frankly am just at a loss for words at this point for the Lakers. It's just it's not getting better somehow. Um, yeah, they beat the Nets, but they also lost to the Kings, Clippers, uh, Jazz, Cavs, Jazz back to back in 5 straight games. You know, there's going to reach a point in time where Anthony Davis and LeBron and Russ are on the trade block, and the Lakers just recoup assets because
Yeah.
this is not a team in position to compete. I know they had the feel good victory over the Kyrie Irving less Brooklyn Nets, and they almost lost that game. You know, AD had to go essentially Super Saiyan because if you look at the stats of that game, Anthony Davis 37 to 18. Russ had a 14-12-6 game, and that's really about it outside of Lonnie Walker, who might have been his best game of the year with 25, and Austin Reeves with 15. No one else did anything. So it's very tough, man. It's very tough in the sense that you know, as a huge LeBron fan, like I want him to really have one more shot at a title, one more shot to go get his ring. But it's just not going to happen in LA. They went for it. They got the bubble one. and everything after that is just completely fallen apart.
Yeah, and you hate to say it, but look, LeBron can't do it all himself anymore. It's just how it goes. Uh, I think at some point, like you said, he'll be on the block. Yeah, if you're doing what's right for your franchise, you have to trade him and get some stuff back for him, some picks, and try and develop that way. That being said, I'm going to throw a hot take out there on the spot. Anthony Davis will be a Golden State Warrior. Uh, we saw Wiseman just got sent down to the G League this week. They need that piece inside. Right now, just rocking Looney, Draymond. You put Anthony Davis in there with Steph and Clay on the wing. I think it could work. Just a little hot take. Spice up some combo.
What's the trade package?
I'm not sure. The Warriors got to have some pick somewhere.
Yeah, but you can't just throw out, oh, he's going to be a war. What are the Warriors trading? Everything?
Yeah, why not?
I got to hear a package, man. Come on.
All right, you keep talking. I'll put a package together.
Yeah. So, in terms of that, I have something in mind. I personally want to see what you come up with first, but it's just a matter of like, yeah, I think Anthony Davis has to be the trade asset number one for the Lakers if they fall out of contention here, because he's the guy that has the most years ahead of him, the most potential left. LeBron, I don't know how much you're getting for a 37-year-old LeBron James. You're still getting something. I'd say you still get at least one first-round pick, but what team he accepts a trade for, if he even would accept a trade for anyone, it's just a very interesting situation for a team that is essentially cratered out, and on the flip side, potentially giving a New Orleans Pelicans team that, if we look at the standings here, is a current play-in team over 500, giving them insanely good odds at Victor Wembanyama, the pair next to Zion. Could you imagine that pairing?
That'd be nuts. Two beasts.
Yeah, exactly. But, rumor, you could see maybe the Knicks, God forbid, taking a swing at Davis. You could see maybe the Bulls, the Heat, who have interest in Randall. So it's going to be very interesting to see what the line of thinking is for the Lakers if they end up, 2-20, 2-15, which is a very realistic possibility for a team that has been #brutal this entire year. Austin, do you have that trade package together just yet?
I don't have a full package together, but the Warriors have their picks going through the next, say, 8 years. And I really honestly, I don't see why not. They really don't have much of a bench, the Warriors. I mean, Kuminga, Wiseman, if the Lakers see something in him. Jordan Poole, I mean, you never know if they want to throw him in the package too. And with some draft picks, I really don't see why the Warriors wouldn't maybe make this deal to potentially just give themselves full-time center, assuming AD can stay healthy, which I guess would be a big question in the trade. But I see it pretty possible.
The Lakers aren't doing that trade without Kuminga, Wiseman, and Poole, plus those picks.
Yeah, no, have to be. It would.
There's
I'm not saying
there's
it's not
no
going to be a
way.
massive package. Why not?
Is there another team you see outside of the Warriors going for Davis? Maybe the
Um,
Knicks. I think that would be a very bad decision. But maybe a team like, if we look at the standings here, trying to gauge it, could you see maybe the Jazz? Crazy
if
as that could be,
yeah,
considering
if
they're contending. Could you see the Hawks, the Bucks, maybe the Celtics.
Bucks would be interesting.
Maybe the Suns. Like there's very interesting options. So I'm intrigued to see how that develops.
Me as well. I think the Lakers, yeah, they're done. It's just not going to work out. Go get some
No.
pieces, put it back together in a few years.
Yeah, and I guess looking in the Eastern Conference too. Yeah, everyone's kind of where I expect them to be, outside of maybe the Miami Heat, who are 7-7 and look in desperate need of reinforcements, along with the Sixers, where, I said this on one of our recent shows. Doc Rivers could be in trouble soon, depending on how long Joel Embiid saves his job for. Even when Rivers tries to take the ball out of Joel Embiid's hands in crunch time when he's going for 60 points. I don't understand that line of thinking whatsoever. But hey, Doc, you do you.
Yeah, it's very cool to see Joel Embiid ball like that the other day. One of the greatest performances. I mean, I guess it's probably, I saw someone was like top 10 all time if by the box score. Uh, but that did make me lose in fantasy basketball. I thought I had my first one in the bag, and I am now 0-4. Thank you, Joel Embiid. Uh, but yeah, like you said, Doc Rivers, he's got to go. I think Daryl Morey and the ownership are watching games with a blindfold on because it's sometimes it gets ridiculous. Give the ball to your best player. He's the most dominant player in the league. I mean, arguably with Giannis. And yeah, no, Sixers be all right. Got to wait for Harden to get back. Point well, and Embiid's still that guy. Still not that much depth though, which killed them last year.
Exactly. Before we move on to NHL talk and then wrapping up the show, I'm gonna get to some of your guys' questions. Big Trev, what's up, Trev? How we doing? DPJ, Gallup, Slayton, PPR this week. I'm assuming you want us to choose one of them. I'm going to go with Donovan Peoples-Jones because you can make the argument he has, over the past few weeks, been Cleveland's number one wide receiver. Obviously facing a tough Baltimore secondary this week, but Peoples-Jones has the speed, athleticism to get open. Brissett targets him a lot. I think he's a good start this week. We then got Kuda Bang in the chat saying, I don't think the Giants will make it deep into the playoffs because rebuild season. Interesting. But I do think they can upset the Eagles. Also another interesting point. Great season in the playoffs, which to me is almost as sweet as a Super Bowl win. I'm really interested to see the first Giants-Eagles matchup, which if we look at the schedule for that would be in... that would still be in 3 weeks. So December 11th. But, they're two teams that I think match up pretty well. I think match up to the point where, okay, the Giants do some things that the Eagles aren't great at. The Eagles do some things that the Giants aren't great at. Those usually create the best football matchups. So it'll be very interesting to see that.
Yeah, I agree. The biggest fan of how close they put the division games at the end of the year, but I also love it at the same time. Just waiting for this matchup to happen because 7-2 versus 8-1. If it was right now, it'd be for the top spot in the division. Hopefully, when we get to that game, magnitude is still there. How big? But yeah, it'll be interesting as the season goes on, and both these teams are playing really well right now. It's going to be a dogfight.
Exactly. Then we got Brian in the chat saying, "What's up, guys? Sorry I'm so late. What's up, Brian? All good? Glad
All
you could.
Good. What's going on?
Glad you could swing by. For any part of the show. We appreciate all you guys that swing by, leave comments. So very appreciative of all the support. Time to move on to a little bit of some NHL talk, a little bit deeper in the year, so we can actually, maybe get into some different stuff with that. Pulling up the Rangers stuff right now. They're currently 4th in the Metropolitan Division. They are 8-6-3 with 19 points, currently trailing the Hurricanes, the Islanders, and the New Jersey Devils. So, New York regional hockey, really, really good this year so far.
Yeah, I agree. Uh, Everyone's like playing pretty good. The Rangers themselves, you know, terrible. I think they've been getting better from where they were, a week ago even. Um, they can score. They can score. It's just keeping the puck out of their zone, goalie staying big. Igor, he's still that guy. This game, Coyotes, yeah, 4-1 win. Coyotes, aren't anything special. Um, yeah, Rangers are fine.
Yeah, exactly. And we mentioned this before on the show. The defense. It comes down to their defense and their ability to score. Looking at their recent 4 games, they put up 3 goals, 8 goals, 1 goal, 4 goals. When they're scoring more than 3 or 3 or more, they're usually winning. The Islanders game is an interesting one because their defense let them down. They didn't perform to that level. And, when their defense and Igor are on point, they're one of the best teams in the league. And it's simple because, the the equation for the Rangers is score, play decent defense, and win. And if the Rangers do that more often than not, I think they're going to be in very good shape going forward. Looking at the Islanders a little bit here, they were on a bit of a back forth where they beat the Rangers, lost to the Coyotes, beat the Blue Jackets, and then beat the Senators. They're playing really good hockey. Nothing really to qualm about that. I think that, and Brian brings up a great point saying he loves the hockey talk, saying Rangers been par for the course. Absolutely agree. Islanders, I think, are overachieving a little bit. I didn't expect them to be as good. The thing with the Islanders is they were in the Cup, I think, 2 or 3 years ago. They were one of the best teams in hockey, and then they just fell off. So they've always had this talent. They've always had the people there. It was just a matter of reaching that point once again. And I think they're reaching that point again. And then Austin, the Devils too, they're having one of the more improbable seasons. Very young team. So they're extremely similar to how the Rangers were last year. So it'll be interesting to see those two teams play later in the year.
Yeah, just watched the Islanders game yesterday. They played pretty good. Still waiting on Barzal's first goal of the year, which a little shocking. But he's an assist god. Racks up points that way, which is just as good as scoring because if you can set your boys up, and get goals, it's also how you win games. It's not just about shooting. Of course, we know that. And yeah, they hung on at the end there. Drew actually made it 3-2 at the end of the game, closed it out for the win. Islanders, I'm gonna agree with Brian though. I think they are overachieving. I think before the season started, we both kind of had them at the mid level, where maybe sneak into a playoff spot and try and make some noise. But look, any night, anyone could be anyone. That's what sports is.
Yeah, Brian also in the chat saying if the Rangers can maintain positive consistency on special teams, they will have no issues. Amazing point there. The Rangers' power play over the past 2 seasons has been incredible. It has been a huge reason of why they win games. And if they can keep that up, that is going to be crucial for them reaching that point. They're on that same pace that they were on last year. So It's just a matter of keeping that up once again. And then we got to finish up the hockey talk. Devils, I expected to start playing a better game. They made moves this offseason that said they are ready to compete for the playoffs. Yeah, they're looking good. They look like a good hockey team. It's going to be very fun. And also, not New York related, but a little bit outside of it. The Philadelphia Flyers are 3 points behind the Rangers. So very, very, very competitive Eastern Conference in hockey right now. So it's gonna be really fun to watch. So I'm excited for it. I'm excited to cover it, as we continue on during the season.
Yeah, hockey it gets good the more you get into it and the more the season goes. The better it gets. Like you said, shout out the Flyers. Team doesn't even have a captain at the moment. Carter Hart though shutting it down.
Yeah.
Tortorella.
Yeah.
East.
Metro is the best division in the NHL. Have to agree with that one. To finish out our show, gonna take some more questions. We got at Actison in the chat with Khalil Herbert on IR. Got that right. Is it Monty season? So technically, I would say yes, because Montgomery will be getting all the running back carries. Justin Fields is also having unprecedented production running as a quarterback. So keep that in mind, where in the past, Montgomery may have been in that RB2, RB1 range. I'd say he's more in that RB2, RB3 range as of now. Austin, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to agree just with like Fields. And we've seen the past 2 weeks, he's become, the vocal point of running the ball for that offense. But Montgomery's still in your starting lineup, I would say, if you have him. Yeah, like Brandon said, RB2, RB3 flex area.
Yeah, 100%. As we look ahead to the week ahead, we usually do hot takes. Oh, what do we think is going to happen? All that. But I think today we're going to switch it up a little bit. Give some predictions and reasons why we think this result is going to happen in the given game time frame or whatever we choose. So to flip back to football here, looking at week 11 of the NFL season of 18, always weird to think that. I say the Buffalo Bills lose their third straight game. And there is a very specific reason why. It has been reported that this weekend, Buffalo will be receiving nearly 2 feet in snow. That means
someone's going to run the ball.
that means the passing game, which, as I mentioned before, Donovan Peoples-Jones, I still like him as a start over the other guys, but be wary that the snow will be a huge factor. Peoples-Jones will get his targets, but the Browns will be relying on Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb in the snow is like a mini Derrick Henry. He's a little bit smaller, but he has that same effect. He is going to run like a madman. And if there's one way that the Buffalo Bills have been beaten in recent weeks, it has been through the running game. We saw it with the Jets, that last drive when they literally ran the ball down the entire field in the fourth quarter. We saw it with the Vikings, with Dalvin Cook having a very good game, breaking off an 80-yard touchdown run. Nick Chubb now gets this Buffalo run defense that has not been good. In a game where Cleveland has the absolute advantage and Buffalo has been very hesitant at best to rely on Devin Singletary in the run game. If it comes down to a pound the rock slugfest, I like Cleveland better. I like Cleveland better to stop the Bills' rushing attack despite their own struggles. And I like Cleveland's ability better to rush the ball against Buffalo and control the clock. So I'm going to go with Cleveland defeating Buffalo this week.
Yeah, I mean, outside Josh Allen, that run game is pretty as dead as it gets. There is 2 feet of snow. Expect the ground game to be moved, but yeah, I don't have a prediction on that one. I'm gonna go with what do we got this week in football? Broncos Raiders. It's such a bad game. I'm gonna say they'll bounce back and they're gonna give the Vikings a loss. I think it's gonna be one of those games where we're really gonna find out who this Cowboys team is. They could go into another hostile environment. Tough loss against the Packers this week. McCarthy's homecoming, all that. We're up 14 going into the fourth, which I think the stat was they've never lost in franchise history like that or something. But yeah, Cowboys going to come out firing. Another big game for CD. He's been a beast, more than I expected. Started, and this Vikings offense or this Vikings team just came off like one of the luckiest wins I've ever seen in my life. Even though gritty win, but crazy play at the end there. I'm gonna give it to the Cowboys.
Awesome prediction. And what do you call it? My last prediction for the show, Knicks related. After the West Coast stretch, Tom Thibodeau will no longer be the head coach of the New York Knicks, avoiding the main problem, although Thibodeau has been an issue, but avoiding the main problem that is Julius Randle. In that regard, I think the Knicks are going to need a scapegoat after this West Coast trip. I hate to be the Debbie Downer, but I'm not confident about playing the top 5 teams in the Western Conference, plus the Warriors. The defense is really concerning me. It's not about how much the Knicks can score. It's about them stopping these other teams' offenses, and I'm very concerned about that. I think a change will be made. Things won't get really moving in the right direction, though, until Julius Randle is shipped out of New York.
Yeah. What do you want the Knicks to get back? If just like throw some names out there for me.
Something.
Anything.
Okay, maybe like a rotational player and a conditional first, like a protected first.
Yeah, no, definitely could get that out of him. I still got life left in him. He's shown this year that he's a good player still. Let's see, do I have any more predictions to give you? Let's see. I told the Steelers are going to win out. And in week 1, they got like 4 picks on Burrow, and Minka might be coming back again after immediate surgery the other day. He may be back this week. TJ's back. They're going to do it again and sweep the Bengals on the season. Go Steelers. We're back.
Bold claim you make. But
before, and it happened, so.
Exactly. But that brings us to the end of our show. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We appreciate all the chats, all the interactions, everything that's going on in the show, on the show. Stay tuned for next week's show, obviously. Have the Jets and Giants back from bye. They have the rest of their seasons, making a playoff push. We got the MLB offseason, so that's going to be exciting to see what happens with that. We got the Knicks West Coast road trip, which, if you can tell, I'm not exactly optimistic about. And we have hockey kicking in the high gear. Plus, whatever other sports news is brought up into the fold, mainly NFL, MLB, and some NBA. On that note, for Austin Kane and myself, thank you guys for joining us. Austin, do you have any parting words for the crowd?
I appreciate everyone joining in, taking time out of your day, listen to me and Bryn talk some shop. We'll be back next Tuesday. Big show.
All right. Thank you guys for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.